All right, Rambam, Sefer, Misvot. Misvot, I say positive commandment. The last one we did was Kof Kav Het, number 128. We're discussing the various obligatory offerings, gifts that a person must do, must offer and separate from his produce, from that which his land yields and he profits. We have some that is consumed on his own after being brought to Yerushalayim, like Netat Evaim, where we ended off yesterday, Ma'aser Sheni, and some which has to be separated and given to other groupings of people in Am Yisrael, like and the order that we're in right now, in terms of when someone needs to go through the various separations and offerings from his produce, is first Terumah Gedolah. That's what we call the Terumah that goes to a Kohen. From the Torah perspective, any amount, rabbinically an average of 2%, followed by the next mitzvah, which was Ma'aser, which goes 10% of that, what's remaining, to the Levi. And then the last one that we mentioned, this Ma'aser Sheni, 10%, what's remaining of that. I didn't mention yesterday, I'll mention it now. Ma'aser Sheni is in play in years 1, 2, 4, and 5 of the Shemitah cycle. We'll discuss the other years, what's in play shortly. Those are yours, the owners. You must bring it to Yerushalayim, we said, and eat it, consume it there, or if you live too far, redeem it and bring the money to Yerushalayim and then buy food and eat there. So now, in that order, and the order is important, to a person who has profited from the yield of the ground and he has produce, he has food, must follow this protocol in this order that we are now giving in the order of Misvot. So we're up to Misvot Kov Chav Tet, number 129. So there is another type of ma'aser that's given. First was given from a Yisrael to a Levi, which is 10% after the Terumah, 9.8 total percent of his original produce. This is a ma'aser given from the Levi to the Kohen. Now, the Kohen, the Levi, just received ma'aser 10% from you, from the Israel. 10% of that 10%, which of your food is original 1%, or more accurately, a 0.98% of your produce, goes then, your original produce that went to the Levi, now goes 10% of what he received goes to the Kohen. So it's ma'aser from a ma'aser. The pasuk tells us, superfluous language there. Speak to the Leviim and tell them, when you take ma'aser from Bnei Israel, Mr. Levi, you must give also yourself ma'aser to the Kohen. ובאר הכתוב שזה המעשר נקרא תרומת מעשר וינתן לכהן. So the Torah itself explains to us, and it's mentioned in the words of throughout Mishnah and Gemara, is known as what's called terumat ma'aser, which is a giving, a removal of ma'aser. And that's why we call the terumah that goes to the Kohen terumah gedolah, the greater, A, because it's a larger amount, B, because it goes to the Kohen, C, because it's the first in order of your givings, of your offerings, of your designations and separations of your food go to the Kohen. This one later on in the chain is called Terumat Ma'aser, which is a giving of Ma'aser that the Levi received from Israel to now the Kohen. Ube'er HaKatuv, shezeh Ma'aser yilakach im min hatov shebo ve'im min hayafeh shebo. Now, we know from the Torah that the Levi, when he gives that, offers from his Ma'aser to the Kohen, it has to be of the best, of the most choicest portion from the Ma'aser, food-wise, that he received. Give that portion to the Kohen. Be'omro, mikol halbo, the Torah uses two words. Mikol halbo means of the choicest, the fattiest. Shehem chotim im lo yusiuhu min hatov, which means that you must bring it, the Levi, from the choices of his food that he received from Israel to the Kohen, and he sins if he does not. How do we know this to be the case? The Torah says, meaning that if you do it the right way, if you follow the procedure and give the choices of your portion to the Kohen, you won't be a sinner, implying that if you don't do that, you will be a sinner. Says the Rambam, this don't do, this warning, this transgression is a default, you can say, is the negatives, the flip side of the obligation. So it's the negation of the obligation. Don't carry a sin upon yourself when you do the right. You won't carry a sin upon yourself when you do the right thing and you take from the choices, Mr. Levi. And we apply from that. If you take from not the choices of your portion and give to the Kohen, then you are sinning. This is what we know to be a lo ta'aseh, but not really a lo ta'aseh, a don't do, an avon that comes from the implication of Misvot aseh. She'eno nimna imha lavin. Says the Rambam, the rule is that's not officially counted as Misvot lo ta'aseh. So a lav, a don't do, a negative, an avon, that comes from the implication of an aseh is not an official lo ta'aseh. Kilomar, it just is an implication. When God says, take it from the choices, it means implying don't take it from the non-choices of your portion. Velashon Sefer, Minay Midrash says, Minay Ata Omer, Shim Hosiu Oto Shalom Hayafe, Shem Menisiat Avon, Tamur Lomar, Lo Tusa Alav Chet. And indeed, the Midrash Halachas, the Sefer implied that from the Pasuk, that you know, for the implication of the Pasuk, that if you don't give from the choices, then you indeed are a sinner. So this Turumat Ma'aser Misvah is spread throughout a few different Masechtot and Seder Zerayim. Misvat Kov Lamed number 130. He shesivar lehosi Ma'aser Ani b'chol shana shlishit mehashemita. Now, there's another type of ma'aser, but this is not on top of the previous set of givings. So far, a regular Israel is giving what? Terumah Gidolah to the Kohen, ma'aser to the Levi. Ma'aser Sheni is on his own. As I explained to you, ma'aser Sheni is from years 1, 2, 4, 5 of the Shemitah cycle. What happens in year 3? Mizvat number 130 tells us that it's a Mizvat Aseh to give what's called Ma'aser Ani on the 3rd year of the Shemitah cycle. And from the 3rd year after every 3rd year, what's that? Kilomar. The 6th year of the Shemitah cycle. So the 3rd and the 6th year of the Shemitah cycle, which are the years that you're not giving, you're not taking Ma'aser Sheni, you're giving Ma'aser Ani. And this is just as it sounds, a 10% offering after you've given to the Kohen and the Levi to the poor and impoverished around you. The source is Mechseh Shalosh Shanim Tosi, the Gemara, the Torah says, take and give another 10%. And that is not, and the Torah explains afterwards, not given, not taken on your own like Ma'aser Sheni, but given to the needy. And as was the others, Ma'aser Ani is only in Mizvah from the Torah in Eretz Yisrael. Now, of course, we know that we have other laws, every Jew, every time, in every place, laws of giving tzedakah. To question whether there's an idea of ma'aser, 10% of currency from a Torah perspective as an obligation or not. La lacha, it's really not. It's a proper custom to take upon yourself. But of course, an individual has other misvot of tzedakah. This exact mizvah ma'aser ani is only an obligation in Eretz Yisrael. וכבר התבהרו משפטי משוואה זו במסכת פאה ומעשרות וקצת שאלות מהן מפוזרות במקומות רבים משאר מסכתות זרעים ומסכת מכשירים וידיים. The Rambam explains that the central laws of this Misvot can be found in Masechet Pe'ah and Ma'asrot, but certain other points are spread out in a number of other Masechtot. Misvot number Kof Lamed Aleph, number 131. So far, the Rambam has covered a number of types of givings and offerings from your produce, from your food that your ground has yielded, in order to give them in, different parties to give them in, sometimes kept by you. And now we're going to have some accessory misvot that are attached to those. And that starting with Misvot 131. He shesivanu lehitvadot lefanav b'hosa'at mishpetei ma'asrot v'trumot ulhitnakot mehem. So now we have, as in the Rambam's words, a misvah to literally lehitvadot, right? Which means that a person has a confession to make regarding the laws of the aforementioned misvot, terumot, ma'asrot, and to, so to speak, when he confesses lehitnakot, it's really a acknowledgement, and that will free a person, so to speak, an acknowledgement of fulfillment of obligation, and thereby officially releasing someone of his duties. B'ma'amar, and you do this with a verbal proclamation. Just like we are physically sort of releasing our obligation when we give over these different misvot of offerings from our produce, so too verbally we have to release ourselves from our obligation as well. This is known as confession of ma'aser, but not just ma'aser, of all your givings. Where is this found? This is in Parashat Ki Tabo. That's the way that this proclamation starts in the Torah, where you come and you say before Hashem, before the Kohen, and it gives you, the Torah states you the proclamation. You have a list of acknowledgments that you have to make. I did such and such. Bi'ati HaKodesh min habayit means that I removed the Kodesh from the house. That's referring to at a certain cutoff point after the third year of Shemitah cycle. That you can't leave any of the givings left over in your house. You have to give the offerings wherever they belong. But that's just the beginning of a list where you confess to Hashem, I did it the right way. And then you're fully relieved of your duties. So Torah imposes upon us not just performing these separations and these offerings, but then acknowledging a positive commandment that I did so. So the details of this law and how you rid, so to speak, as we mentioned in the pasuk, of your obligatory offerings from your house at a certain time, all found in Masechet Ma'aser Sheni. We'll read one more misvah. Goes well with it. Misvah Kof Lamed Bet, number 132. Which is also it's a partner and a neighbor of the previous misvah in the beginning of Parashat Ki Tabo. We have a misvah to proclaim the goodness, the favor, the wonderful kindness bestowed upon us by Hashem and the way He has saved us. What is this referring to? It starts with a story from the days of Yaakov Avinu. It ends with the oppression of the Misraim, the Egyptians, upon us in the slavery and the servitude in Misraim. And our subsequent freedom, and to praise Hashem on all of our history, and then also to ask Him that He should constantly bestow His beracha upon us. When does this happen? So a handful of misvot ago, we spoke about the misvah that you have to offer the first of your produce in every given species to the Kohen in the Bet HaMikdash. It's called the Misvah Bikurim, from the word Bechor, the first of. When you do that, you have a proclamation that you have to make. This proclamation is not like the last one that I fulfilled all my duties. Rather, this is a proclamation of acknowledgement and thanks and gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when you proclaim your history from Yaakov Avinu all the way through getting to the land of Israel. Before I enjoy the first of my prophets, I first acknowledge where I came from, where I am, who gave all this to me, and who I have to thank for it. This is actually the basis of the Haggadat Pesach. Those 5 Pesukim are the foundation of telling the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. The Torah's source, when you bring the Bikurim, you must proclaim the following. The entire paragraph. The name for the Misvot we give is the proclamation of Bikurim. And as I said, it's a partner with the previous Misvot, Vidui Ma'aseh. Those are the first 2 Misvot named Parashat Kitabo. Bikurim, where it belongs, that this discussion is the Masechet Bikurim, Perek Zayin Misvot, also Masechet Sotah. Women are not obligated in this proclamation and to come to Yerushalayim, bring the Bikurim, and make this proclamation of Bikurim. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen v'Amen.